It's like a pine tree.
Well, maybe I have to bring my handle of aviation gin in March. You can try gin and tonic.
I will try anything. I'm like a garbage disposal. I'll try any food. I'll try any drink, but I can't commit to liking it or finishing it.
What's your longest trip, Lee, for work?
So in the Lears, we're very range limited. This airplane, we only carry, I don't know how many gallons, because like once you start talking about like turbines and jets, you typically start thinking in pounds per hour, because we talk about gallons, that's a volumetric unit. And when you start thinking of pounds, that is a direct correlation to how much energy you get per pound when it's turned into combustion. Okay. So that's why, a lot of bigger engines are all rated in pounds per hour, how much they burn. So I don't know how many gallons the airplane holds. I probably should know that, but I don't. But I know it holds 5,300 pounds of fuel. And that makes us very range limited. You get to about 3 hours of flight time at 450-ish knots, and you need to be pretty much landing if you want to have any reserve at all. So, a lot going on there. The furthest I've gone from San Diego nonstop to Cleveland, 4.1 hours nonstop. Landed with like 1,200 pounds of fuel, which is about hour and at a certain power setting. Of course, it's all respective of power setting. It's about an hour and 10 minutes of fuel. So that's pretty good. I mean, that airplane had 6,000 pounds of fuel in it, but yeah, 4.1 hours, which doesn't sound like much when you're talking about like, oh, in a 172, 182, 4.1 hours. Yeah, like I was just talking about the 182 RG has 6 hours of fuel. Yeah, but I covered 2,000 miles.
Yeah,
that's the difference, which is kind of cool. Like I even saved there we
go.
The manifest sheet from that flight. I even saved that because it's kind of, even to me, that's like a big deal. I got almost 7,500 miles or 7,500 hours of flying time. That's still kind of a milestone. Like I went not coast to coast per se, but I went a long ass way in an airplane that shouldn't have really been able to do it. And so, what I did there, I took off and I climbed. First off, I had the autopilot on early, which is not normally my style. I normally hand fly through, I don't know, up into the 20s and then turn the autopilot on then. But in this case, I turned the autopilot on early. I was probably only through 3,000 or 4,000 feet, because when I'm hand flying, I'm over controlling. Even if I'm awesome and on my game, I'm over controlling still a little bit. Like there's just no way around it. If I turn the autopilot on, it's just deflecting that control surface enough. Drag, right? When you can deflect a control surface, that's drag. That's how it works, right? So if it gets deflected, that is like inefficient. So if I turn the autopilot on, it is deflecting that control surface is the greatest extent that it absolutely needs to work and be effective. I can't do that. So if I know I'm like I talked about earlier in the episode, if I'm fuel critical, that starts from the time I start up. So I single engine taxied out, I took off, I climbed steep, meaning slow. I continued this climb out of San Diego. So we took off west out over the water, and then came back and we were going east, of course, towards Cleveland. So I know we're going the wrong direction. So I'm climbing steep and slow. So I'm climbing steep and slow, and I'm doing like 200, 220 knots indicated, where normally if that was anywhere else, I'd be doing 250 to 280. So I'm doing 220, climbing slow but steep. There's no acceleration period where I'm like kind of inefficient. So I'm just climbing steep and slow, getting up to altitude, autopilot on. Okay, I'm stacking the deck as much as I can in favor of fuel savings. I get to a point, climb like normal, or I get through like 25, 30,000 feet, shell it out, get to 250 knots, and accelerate there while I still have some thrust energy, and accelerate. Then we continue the climb as ATC allows us. We get up to 45,000. Then we burn off some fuel, so we're lighter. Get up to 47,000. Burn off some more fuel, so we're lighter. Then we finally get up to 49,000 feet. And we're cresting this line of weather kind of in line with Oklahoma City. It's just dumping rain. There was a cell to the south of us. We're at 49,000 feet going across the top of this line. There was a cell to the south of us up to like 63,000 feet. 63,000 feet. We're up at 49,000 feet, the highest I'd ever been at this point. And this is still 20,000 feet above us. It's just mind boggling how insignificant you feel. But yeah, it doesn't seem like much when you have that amount of hour range in a 182. But when you're doing 450 knots, going across the country, dealing with weather, dealing with like just aeronautical decision making in general, aeromedical factors with altitude, it seems like a big deal, and like enough to me, even as like 7,000 hours, that I'm keeping the manifest from the flight.
Yeah. I saw that and I was thinking, what is the longest like you've been sent out on a trip for work? Like how many days were like you forced to be away from home?
We only really do 4 or 5. Like 4 is the max that we do. Like in my fleet, it can happen that it's 5, but what needs to happen is they need to approve it with the crew, and they'll either send you home on an airline. If it's at more than 3, you can elect to stay, or they'll bring you home on an airline.
Okay. What about the when you were at the regionals?
They can do up to a 5-day trip.
Okay.
Now, that pretty much only happens when you're on reserve. If you're a line holder, 4-day trip.
Okay. All right.